Oftentimes, what we're meant to do, who we're meant to be, how we're meant to proceed is made obvious, laid bare before us. It's right in front of our eyes. Yahuwah, the Most High, He who brings all things into existence. Praise Yahuwah. He grants gifts, bestows upon us all of the blessings and the bounty that we would ever need. And we ignore it. Because by nature, all of us, most of us, are always seeking the BBD, the bigger, better deal. Because there's got to be a bigger, better deal out there. But for most of us, if not all of us, the signs are right in front of us. So close we could touch it, we could grasp it, we could wrap our arms around it and make it our own. But we reject it. We reject it. And we go seeking signs and wonders when they're right in front of us. I remember I'd really set my mind on what I wanted to do. I thought I finally figured it out in my late teens. I wanted to be a journalist. And I know I had a passion for it. I know I had something in me that excited me about the prospects of being a journalist. And there was even a TV show at the time. I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but I believe it was by the same guy who made Miami Vice, Michael Mann, but maybe it wasn't. And maybe it was just made in the same style. But it was about an investigative journalist. And it had that same vibe, that same 80s feel to it, but that cool Miami Vice feel to it. And it made journalism seem as cool as being a detective. And I would watch this thing and I was like, that's what I want to be. And so I went to college and my major was journalism. And I was doing really good at it. I was learning the craft. And I was doing really well. I remember once my professor held up a piece that I had written. He was holding it up as an example of what good journalism is. And I knew I was on the right path. And then one day we have a class where he tells us, hey, just want to let everyone know, you should not embark on a career in journalism if what you're after is money, because you're never going to make any money being a journalist. And he goes on and on to explain why we should be a journalist. And you know how in the movie, is it Jerry Maguire where he says, you had me at hello? Well, that professor lost me at, you're not going to make any money. And that was it for me. I was out. Everything he said after that, although he did say some really important things like, do this for the press pass. Do this for the access you get. Do this because you get to cross that line, that yellow tape that surrounds a crime scene. You get to go behind that. You get to see what most people don't see. You get to talk to the people about the things that most people don't get a chance to have those conversations about. You get to see a different side of the world, a different side of society. You get a peek behind the curtain. I'm elaborating here, right? But essentially he was saying this press pass gets you access to the halls of power. And you learn things that most people will never know. And then you get to write about them. And so you do it for that access. That's essentially what he was saying, if I remember him correctly. But again, he lost me at the money thing because I grew up without having any money. I look back at it now and I really had everything I needed And it wasn't like I was unhappy, but I knew. The reality was stark because I boarded a very wealthy neighborhood, and we didn't have much money. I believe growing up, my household income was $8,000. There was a fair bit of time that we grew up on food stamps, and everyone around me seemed to have a nice car, a nice house. They had things, and so I was plainly aware that, we didn't have as much as many people did. But again, had a shelter over my head, had clothes, had people around me that loved me, family that loved me, food in my belly. So now I look back and I realize, things were fine, but I was acutely aware of not having as much money as I would have liked. And so as soon as I heard that, it turned me off to something that Yahuwah had put in front of me. A career that would have been full of excitement and interest and passion. Another thing that was right in front of me, my mother used to tell me from a very early age, she used to say that I had the gift of gab. And so maybe that aligned with being a journalist. I could tell a story. I could make it appear to be exciting and interesting. I could hold people's attention. And so I naturally fell into not really having a career after that. I ended up falling into sales. I became quite good at it. Made a lot of money at it. Did really well. But then my ego got in the way. And I thought, well, I'm so smart. I'm so good at making money with this sales thing. I should be a leader. I should be a business owner. I should be an entrepreneur. I should be all these other things. And so I go down those roads, especially the leadership role, the leadership road, such that I bulldoze my way into being a sales manager, and then a sales director, and then a sales leader, a sales VP, all these leadership titles, all these leadership roles. And for 20 plus years, I end up leading sales teams. But I was never happy at it because I was doing it for ego. I was doing it to fulfill this sense that, well, there must be something more to this sales thing, and I should be a leader of men. I should stand on top of the mountain and point the way to go because I know best. And so it was purely out of ego that I wanted to lead people. And yes, I'm sure, I know I helped many, many, many individuals become successful in a sales career. I taught them how to sell. I was able to motivate them and inspire them to do great things. But again, it was pure ego stoking. To be out front, to be the boss, to be the man, to be the guy at the top of the mountain. And that's not the reason to be a leader. The reason to be a leader is because you want to be an example for your people. You want to live as an example for your people. You want to be able to mentor your people. You want to be that person that people can lean on. You don't want to do it because you have an ego. And so I was never happy because fulfilling ego will leave you bereft and lonely and wanting and longing and thirsting and never getting really what you're after. But Yahuwah gave me a voice. He gave me the ability to project. My third grade teacher would say, La, you're going to be an attorney because your voice projects. In the third grade, she's telling me this. I don't know, maybe I should have been. But I know this. I know that I was happy just selling, just promoting, just telling a story, just exciting people and motivating people about something that I believed in or could believe in. And that made me happy. And so it took me 25 years to realize this. And that's what I do now, and I'm happy. And there's so many other examples I could give you. But the Most High, the Supreme Elohim, Yahuwah, shows us exactly the path we should be traveling. But again, we're always in search of, we want an instant answer to our desire for a sign. Show us a sign, we ask for. Show us a sign. As if in that moment, we're immediately, instantly, as if we're ordering up a pizza, we're shown a sign, like it's a magic trick. Show us a magic trick that will amaze us. And then, then we'll believe. Then we'll know this is the right way. When the signs are everywhere, the signs are all around us, we're just either too bullheaded, too egocentric, too arrogant, too conceited, too distracted, too diverted by the illusion that is this world, that, and by the BBD, the bigger, better deal, that, because it's never enough. It can't be that easy. It can't be that obvious. It's got to be more complex. It's not. It's right in front of you. What Yahuwah wants for you is right in front of you. Open your eyes. When Yahusha, the Most High who manifested in the flesh, the Most High who saves, that's the meaning of the name Yahusha, the Most High who saves, the Most High who delivers, the Most High who redeems. After he comes off the mountain with his taught ones, with his disciples, I believe with Peter and James and John, after he was up there, and after his disciples see him in all of his glory, see him in the blinding brilliance of Yahuwah's light, see him up there with Moshe and Eliyahu. And as they're coming down the mountain, his taught ones ask him, Adonai, why is it? Adonai, which means master. Adonai. Or maybe it also means teacher. Adonai. Definitely means master. Adonai, why do they say that Eliyahu, Elijah, right? But his real name is Eliyahu. Why do they say that Eliyahu must come first? Meaning before you, before Yahusha, before the Messiah. And they say he must come first, and he will come first, and he has come first. Except they did not know him. They did not recognize him. And who he was referring to, his taught ones realize, is John. John the Immerser, a.k.a. John the Baptist. He says, Eliyahu came, but they did not know him. They did not recognize him. And they did whatsoever they wished with him. And what did they do to John the Immerser? Eliyahu in the flesh. They beheaded him. They threw him in prison. King Herod threw him in prison and had him beheaded at the behest of his wife, who was his brother's wife, who he had taken. At the behest of his wife and his wife's daughter, his brother's daughter, who after a dance seduces him so that he says, I'll give you, what do you want? I'll give you half my kingdom. And she goes to the mother, and the mother says, because John the Immerser had called King Herod out for his evil and his sinfulness, and for joining with his brother's wife. And so John would heckle him in front of the people. But Herod knew that this was a prophet, and so he wouldn't mess with him. But he had to shut him up somehow, so he puts him in prison. And then his wife, through his daughter, tells him, okay, he's going to grant you anything you want. Tell him you want John the Immerser's head. on a platter now. And the scripture says, the gospel says, the New Testament says that Herod was sad about this, but he had to do it because he had made a vow in front of his people. And in order to save face, he couldn't back down now. That he said he would do anything. He'd give half his kingdom to his wife's daughter who had seduced him with this dance. And so he has John the Immerser beheaded. Can you imagine? Beheaded and put on a platter and handed to this evil woman and her daughter. Oh. But Yahusha says, Eliyahu came and they did not recognize him. And the same will happen to me, he says. The same will happen to Yahusha. Because they did not recognize him. Although the people knew, the people flocked to him. And even the Sanhedrin, the evil, lying scribes, the hypocritical Pharisees, even they knew he was the Messiah. But he was a threat to their power and their domination over their fellow man. So they had him murdered for it. But what Yahusha is saying is that ultimately that you want signs, you want prophets, you want prophecy, you want the word. It is right in front of you. It's everywhere. The signs are apparent, but you've turned a blind eye to them. But accept Yahusha. Ask for his salvation and his grace. Receive his salvation as it floods over you and resuscitates your heart and fills your heart with the way, the truth, and the life. Floods you and baptizes you with the set-apart spirit, the breath of Yahuwah, and fire, such that your heart is now purified of all evil, of all toxins, of all poison. And you are revived, refreshed, reconstructed, renewed, reborn. Once again in his image. And now you know gratefulness. Now you know thankfulness because you feel the salvation from all that you knew you were. All that you hoped you could be, and now all that you are in his grace and his glory and his power and his redemption. And you're truly grateful for the first time ever. And at that final moment, you realize the key to it all, to surrender completely to Yahusha's will, and ask him to guide you and show you how to live your life in a manner that pleases him most, and then to receive the word, the commandment from which all good things spring that he gave us, which is to love Yahuwah with all our heart, souls, mind, and strength, and love our fellow man as we love ourselves, and all the revelations, all of the epiphanies, all the understandings you ever seek or have sought are distilled therein. And in ruminating and contemplating and meditating on that commandment, all the prosperity will spring, all the good things will spring, all the wholesome and productive elements of your life will come forward. It is the one commandment from which all the other commandments are understood and come from. Love Yahuwah with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your fellow man as you love yourself. Receive the word. The signs are everywhere, right in front of you.